In just 36 seconds, one of Britain's most beloved talk show hosts completely dismantled a prince on live television. What started as friendly banter turned into an absolute meltdown that ended with security being called and a royal storming off set in front of millions of viewers. This wasn't just awkward, this was a full-blown character assassination that nobody saw coming. Before we dive into this absolute chaos, make sure you subscribe to this channel. We post daily videos exposing the royal family's darkest scandals, and trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Last night's episode of The Graham Norton Show was supposed to be a light-hearted evening of celebrity chat and laughs. Prince Harry had been booked to promote his latest charitable initiative, something about mental health awareness for veterans. The audience was packed, the cameras were rolling, and Graham Norton, in his usual cheeky style, welcomed Harry onto the famous red sofa with that signature Irish charm that's made him a household name for decades. Harry walked out to massive applause, waving to the crowd with that practiced royal wave. He was wearing a casual blazer and jeans, clearly trying to look relatable and down to earth. Graham stood up, shook his hand, and they both sat down as the applause died down. Everything seemed perfectly normal. "Harry, lovely to have you here," Graham said with a warm smile. "Now, I have to say, you're looking very California these days. The tan is working for you." The audience laughed. Harry grinned and nodded. "Yeah, well, the weather's a bit better than London, I'll give you that." "Just a bit," Graham chuckled. "So you're here to talk about your new veterans' mental health program. Tell us about it." Harry launched into his prepared talking points, discussing the importance of mental health support for former military personnel. He spoke passionately about his own time in the army and how he'd seen friends struggle after returning to civilian life. The audience seemed engaged, nodding along. Graham listened politely, interjecting with thoughtful questions. But then Graham, being Graham, decided to poke a little fun. It's what he does. It's his style. Light teasing, gentle mockery, nothing too harsh. Just enough to keep things entertaining. "Now Harry," Graham said with a mischievous glint in his eye, "you talk a lot about wanting privacy in a normal life. But you've written a book, done a Netflix series, and now you're on my show. I'm just wondering, and the audience might be too, when does the privacy actually start?" The audience laughed. It wasn't mean-spirited, just honest. It was the elephant in the room that everyone had been thinking. Harry's smile tightened just slightly. You could see it in his eyes. He wasn't thrilled with the question. "Well, Graham," Harry said, his voice measured, "there's a difference between sharing your truth on your own terms and being hunted by the press." Right, Graham nodded. "But you're still sharing. Quite a lot, actually. I mean, we know more about your family disputes than most people know about their own families." Another laugh from the audience. Harry shifted in his seat. "I think people deserve to hear the real story, not the lies that get printed." "Sure, absolutely," Graham agreed. "But here's the thing I don't quite understand, and maybe you can help me out here. You say you want your privacy, you want to protect your family, but then you go on television and talk about private conversations with your father, your brother, details about your personal life. How is that protecting anyone?" The mood in the studio shifted. You could feel it. The laughter became more nervous. Harry's jaw clenched. "I'm setting the record straight, Graham. There's a difference." "Is there, though?" Graham pressed, leaning forward slightly. "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're doing exactly what you accuse the tabloids of doing, invading your family's privacy for profit." The audience went quiet. Dead quiet. Harry's face flushed red. "That's not fair, isn't it?" Graham's tone was still light, but there was an edge to it now. "I'm just asking the questions that I think a lot of people are wondering. You can't have it both ways, can you? You can't demand privacy while simultaneously selling stories about your private life." Harry sat up straighter, his voice rising slightly. "I'm not selling stories. I'm telling my truth." "Your truth," Graham repeated, with a slight emphasis that made it sound almost sarcastic. "Right. And your truth just happens to come in hardback, paperback, and audiobook versions, all available on Amazon." The audience laughed again, but it was uncomfortable now. People weren't sure if this was still playful or if it was getting serious. Harry wasn't laughing at all. "This is exactly the kind of thing I'm talking about," Harry said, his voice tight. "You're twisting what I'm saying." "I'm not twisting anything, Harry," Graham replied calmly. "I'm just pointing out the contradictions. You want sympathy for wanting privacy, but you're on a massive publicity tour. You want people to respect your boundaries, but you've told the world about incredibly private family matters. Can you see why some people might find that a bit hypocritical? Harry's hands gripped the armrest of the sofa. You don't understand what it's like to grow up in that institution. The lies, the manipulation, Oh, I think we all understand it was difficult, Graham interrupted. But Harry, millions of people have difficult families. Most of them don't write tell-all books about it and then expect everyone to feel sorry for them while they're living in a mansion in California. The audience gasped. This was getting heated. Harry's eyes widened in disbelief. That's incredibly dismissive of what I went through. I'm not dismissing anything, Graham said, his voice still measured but firm. I'm saying that actions have consequences. You can't trash your family on television and in books, and then get upset when people question your motives. I'm not trashing anyone. Harry's voice was louder now, defensive. I'm speaking my truth. There you go with that phrase again, Graham said, shaking his head. Your truth. What about their truth? What about your father's truth? Your brother's truth? Your grandmother's truth? Do they not get to defend themselves? They have the entire British press defending them, Harry shot back. The institution protects them. And yet, here you are, on one of the biggest talk shows in Britain, with a book at #1 on the bestseller list, being protected by absolutely nobody, Graham countered. Seems like you're doing just fine without the institution, doesn't it? The tension was thick now. The audience didn't know whether to laugh or stay silent. Harry looked like he was barely containing his anger. His face was flushed, his breathing visible. You clearly don't get it, Harry said, his voice dripping with frustration. You don't understand the pressure, the constant scrutiny. Oh, don't I? Graham cut him off again, and this time there was real fire in his voice. Harry, I'm a gay man from Ireland who grew up during the Troubles. I've faced my share of prejudice and pressure. The difference is, I didn't write a book blaming my family for all my problems. The audience erupted in applause. Harry looked stunned, like he'd been slapped. His mouth opened and closed, searching for words. That's not the same thing, Harry stammered. You're right, it's not, Graham agreed. Because I had to actually work for everything I have. I didn't inherit millions and then complain about how hard my life was. Harry stood up suddenly, his chair scraping against the floor. I think we're done here. Sit down, Harry, Graham said, his voice calm but commanding. We're in the middle of a show. I don't have to sit here and be insulted, Harry said, his voice shaking with anger. Nobody's insulting you, Graham replied, still seated, looking up at Harry. I'm asking you fair questions that you clearly can't answer without getting defensive. Fair questions? Harry's voice went up an octave. You just compared my entire life to yours, as if they're remotely similar. I compared our responses to adversity, Graham corrected. And, frankly, yours has been to whinge about it on every platform available while counting your Netflix money. The audience was in shock. Some people were gasping. Others were starting to laugh nervously. This had gone from uncomfortable to explosive in seconds. Whinge, Harry repeated, his face now fully red. You think I'm whinging? Do you have any idea what it's like to lose your mother and then have the press pick apart every aspect of your life? I don't, Graham admitted, standing up now to face Harry. And I'm truly sorry about your mother. Everyone is. But Harry, that was almost 30 years ago. At some point, you have to stop using it as an excuse for every decision you make. The studio went completely silent. You could hear a pin drop. Harry's eyes were wide, his mouth slightly open in shock. Nobody talks about his mother. Nobody dares. How dare you? Harry whispered, his voice trembling. How dare you bring her into this? You bring her into everything, Graham said, his voice softer now but still firm. Every interview, every chapter, every speech. Your mother's memory deserves better than being used as a shield for your choices. Harry's hands were shaking. You have no right. I have every right to ask these questions, Graham interrupted. That's what journalism is. That's what interviews are. You came on this show knowing I might ask difficult questions. If you only want softball questions and people telling you how brave you are, maybe you should stick to American talk shows. That was the final straw. Harry's face went from red to almost purple. You know what? Screw this. Screw you. The audience gasped at the language. Graham just stood there, arms crossed, watching Harry unravel. Lovely, Graham said dryly. Very princely. I'm not a prince anymore, remember? Harry spat back. I gave all that up to get away from people like you. People like me? Graham raised an eyebrow. You mean people who ask you to explain yourself? People who don't just nod along and agree with everything you say? People who don't understand what I've been through? Harry was shouting now, completely losing his composure on live television. Oh, we understand, Harry, Graham said, his voice cutting. We understand perfectly. You had a privileged life. You had some family issues like everyone does. And instead of dealing with it privately like an adult, you decided to turn it into a career. And now you're upset because not everyone is applauding you for it. Harry pointed a finger at Graham, his hands shaking. You don't know anything about me, or my life. I know what you've told us, Graham shot back. In excruciating detail. Repeatedly. That's the problem, Harry. We know too much. And the more you tell us, the less sympathetic people become. I don't need sympathy from people like you, Harry snarled. Clearly not, Graham agreed. What you need is validation. Constant, endless validation that you're the victim and everyone else is wrong. Well, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to give you that. Harry stood there, chest heaving, looking around the studio like a cornered animal. The cameras were still rolling. The audience was dead silent, watching this car crash unfold in real time. Production assistants were frozen, unsure whether to intervene. This is bullshit, Harry said, his voice cracking slightly. This whole thing is bullshit. No, Harry, Graham said quietly. What's bullshit is you coming on here expecting a free pass? What's bullshit is you thinking that your title and your trauma give you the right to be above criticism. What's bullshit is you making millions off your family's pain and then acting shocked when someone calls you out on it. Harry's breathing was rapid now. He looked like he might cry or scream or both. I came here to talk about veterans. Did you? Graham tilted his head. Or did you come here to promote yourself while hiding behind a charitable cause? Because that's what this looks like to me. That's what it all looks like, one long promotional tour disguised as advocacy. That's not true, Harry said. But his voice was weak now, defensive. Then prove me wrong, Graham challenged. Stop doing interviews, stop writing books, stop making documentaries, just do the charity work quietly. But you won't, will you? Because this isn't really about the causes. It's about you. It's always been about you. Harry shook his head, tears visible in his eyes now. You're twisting everything. I'm not twisting anything, Graham said firmly. I'm holding up a mirror and you don't like what you see. Harry grabbed his jacket from the back of the sofa. I'm leaving. Go ahead, Graham said, sitting back down calmly. Run away. It's what you do best, isn't it? Harry froze, halfway to putting his jacket on. He turned back to Graham, his face a mixture of rage and hurt. What did you just say? You heard me, Graham said, looking Harry straight in the eye. You run. You ran from the UK. You ran from your family. And now you're running from this conversation because you can't handle being questioned. I didn't run, Harry said through gritted teeth. I made a choice to protect my family. By putting them in the spotlight? Graham laughed, but there was no humor in it. By making them targets with every interview you give? That's protection? My wife was being destroyed by the press. Harry's voice cracked with emotion. They were killing her. So you moved to America and did more press? Graham spread his hands. Make it make sense, Harry. You say you want to protect her, but you keep putting her in every headline. You keep talking about her, about your kids, about your private life. That's not protection. That's exploitation. Harry's jaw clenched so hard you could see the muscles working. Don't you dare talk about my wife. Why not? Graham asked. You do. Constantly. You've made her the center of your entire narrative. The victim. The reason for everything. But Harry, she's a grown woman who made her own choices. She wanted to be famous. She wanted to be a princess. And when that didn't work out the way she imagined, you both decided to play the victim card and cash in on it. That's enough, Harry roared, slamming his hand down on the arm of the sofa. The audience jumped. You don't get to talk about her like that. I'll talk about her however I want, Graham said, still eerily calm. This is my show. Those are my questions. And if you can't handle it, There's the door. Harry stood there, breathing heavily, looking at the exit, then back at Graham, then at the audience. Everyone was staring at him. Cameras were capturing every second of his meltdown. This was going to be everywhere by morning. "You're a bully," Harry said, his voice shaking. "Just like the rest of them." "No, Harry," Graham said, standing up again. "A bully picks on someone weaker. I'm just treating you like any other guest who comes on this show with questionable behavior. The problem is, you're used to people bowing and scraping. And when someone doesn't, you call them a bully." "Screw you," Harry said again, putting his jacket on properly now. "Screw this show. Screw this country. Screw all of you." "There it is," Graham said, nodding. "There's the real Harry. Not the polished PR version, not the humanitarian prince, but the entitled brat who throws a tantrum when things don't go his way." Harry's face was wet with tears now, though whether they were from anger or hurt was impossible to tell. "I'm done. I'm out of here." "One more thing before you go," Graham called out as Harry started walking toward the exit. Harry paused but didn't turn around. "When you're giving your next interview about how terrible this experience was, about how I ambushed you and treated you unfairly, just remember everyone watching tonight saw exactly what happened. They saw me ask fair questions and you fall apart. They saw the real you, Harry, and I don't think they're going to like what they saw." Harry stood there for a moment, his back to Graham and the audience. His shoulders were shaking. Then, without another word, he walked off the stage. The studio doors slammed behind him with an echoing bang that seemed to hang in the air. Graham turned to the camera, his expression neutral. "Well," he said calmly, "I think we'll take an early commercial break." The red light on the camera went off. The audience sat in stunned silence, not sure if they were allowed to react. In the back, you could hear Harry's voice, muffled but angry, shouting at someone, probably his security or a producer. Then the sound of another door slamming. Graham sat back down on the sofa, straightened his jacket, and waited for the commercial break to end. He didn't look upset or rattled. He looked like a man who had just done exactly what he intended to do. In the hallway backstage, Harry was pacing, his phone already out, probably calling his PR team to do damage control. But it was too late for that. The whole thing had been broadcast live. Millions of people had watched him lose his temper, swear on national television, and storm off a talk show because he couldn't handle a few tough questions. The cameras had caught every second. The tears, the anger, the entitlement, the complete breakdown of composure. This wasn't going to go away. This was going to follow him for a very long time. Graham Norton had done what the British press, the American media, and even his own family had failed to do. He'd gotten under Harry's skin and exposed the truth that Harry had been trying so hard to hide. That beneath all the therapy speak, and the charitable work, and the claims of wanting privacy, there was still a spoiled prince who couldn't handle being told no, who couldn't handle criticism, who couldn't handle being treated like everyone else. And Britain had watched it all happen live. The commercial break ended. Graham welcomed his next guest with the same warm smile he always had, as if nothing had happened. But everyone knew. Everyone had seen it. The prince had fallen apart on live television, and there was no coming back from that.